My name is Jennifer Webb, and I get to be the Director of Enrollment Management and Financial Aid at Flint Hill, and it is so great to see all of you here. We really appreciate you joining us and connecting with us to learn how we do upper school here at Flint Hill. So in terms of the event this evening, we are going to hear from our head of school, Patrick McHonett. You'll hear from the division leadership, Don Page and Debbie Ayers, to learn more about the upper school specifically. And then we also have upper school parents, students, alum, and team members here to share their experiences with you and to answer any questions that you might have. In terms of the format of the event this evening, I think we're all pretty used to these virtual events. For the best sound quality, we will stay muted, but that does not mean that we don't want to hear from you, because we really, really, really do want to hear from you. We want to know what's on your mind. We want to know what's resonating with you. We want to know what you're curious about. We love curiosity at Flint Hill. So type your questions into the chat box. If you haven't found that already, find that so that you can let us know what's on your mind. We have our admission team members, Justin Fitzgerald here and Julie Lewis. They are the upper school officers, and they will either be chatting back some answers to your questions or jumping in and letting us know what questions you have so that we can be sure to answer them. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our head of school, Patrick McHonett. He leads us in living up to our core values every single day, while also keeping our focus on the long game. And it is my pleasure to introduce Patrick.
Thanks, Jennifer. Appreciate you and your team and all of the work that's going into these events, and welcome prospective Huskies to this upper school event. We're really thrilled to be able to have you here. If you don't know, I'm actually new here to Flint Hill. I just joined this community earlier this summer as its next head of school, succeeding John Thomas, who had been here for 17 years before earning a well-deserved retirement. And I am so excited to be here as a part of this community, specifically for some of the things that I'm going to talk to you about tonight, which happen to be our mission and our core values. I'm an upper school person through and through. It's where I got my start in education after having worked in higher education as a college admissions representative. And I love the work that this Flint Hill Upper School does with its students, in particular in leading through these core values as we get going along. So I'm going to prompt Jen a little bit here to push us along through the slides, and I appreciate her helping on the tech side. But I want to share a little bit about what really drew me to Flint Hill and the specialness of this community. So for me in particular, coming into this school community as a new person, having worked at other great independent schools, one of the main drivers was being able to come to a place that was going to authentically live its values. There's a lot of schools that talk the talk. There's not a lot of schools that walk the walk. And here, Flint Hill doesn't just walk it, they lean into it. Sometimes we run it. I think that saying and doing the right things and building a community in these ways is incredibly important. We talk about our ways in which we model this innovative mindset. We talk about the ways in which we partner and model with our students and our families for their own best growth. But really, the long and the short of it is, as a JK through 12 school, we are invested in kids every step of the way from age 4 till they cross that graduation stage off to college and life beyond. And so it's that thoughtfulness and that deliberate intention that really makes a difference here at Flint Hill. Go ahead, Jen. One of the things with independent schools nowadays is making sure that we are always being true to our core beliefs and always making sure that we're on the bleeding edge of where educational innovation might take us. And I think that's one of the things that I love about Flint Hill in particular. This is a place that is well established. It is in great shape, but it is not a place that's going to sit back and pat itself on its back. There are other great schools out here, particularly in the DC area, that will lean solely on tradition, but perhaps put on some blinders to what else there might be out there in how we can support our students in 2022 and in 2032 and 2042. So we really do try to think about what's on the next cusp for our students, never losing sight of the traditions and the core academic experiences that truly help them be their best, but also not losing sight on the fact that it's a really dynamic and changing world, and we're expecting our kids to be leaders and learners for tomorrow. And so that balance, I think, is one of the things that makes Flint Hill so very special. And that's lived really through our core values. So Jen, if you can come on over to that next page. These core values: respect and value all equally, lead and support with compassion, act with integrity, imagine what's possible, and blaze the trail. That's not just signs on a wall or even single words. They're actions. They are expectations of our students, our faculty, and our community writ large. And there's something that we really do truly hold dear to our students and to ourselves here at Flint Hill. And if you allow me a second, I'd like to go through each of them individually to just share a few examples of what that looks like at the upper school level. Upper school students, if you don't know, you know now, 14 to 18-year-olds, they got a lot of opinions. They have a lot of experiences. They're ready to lead. And what we're noticing now in education and in the world at large is, how do we lead and how do we work together while recognizing the wide variety of differences of experiences, perspectives, opinions, backgrounds, you name it. And so it's very deliberate that we lead our core values with this one: respect and value all equally. And that comes through in how our students comport with one another in our clubs, activities, on the athletic fields, in the art studios, on the theater stage, but also in the classroom, where we talk about really challenging and interesting discussions around different belief systems, around different political issues or social issues or historical issues. And the recognition now for our students here is, how do we see you and your experience, whatever that might be, and how do we learn from that? Instead of just saying, well, they're different, I disagree, I'm stepping back. It's about how do we lean into sharing those commonalities, learning from one another of a different opinion or experience, and realizing that the world's better for those things as we continue to work through that. That involves the work with our curriculum, the books that we read, the debates that we have in classes, our hiring practices, the ways in which we really try to cultivate a very equitable community and inclusive community is important here at Flint Hill. Let's move on to the next one. Lead and support with compassion. This is one of my favorites because I get to see it every day and I try to model it from this spot as head of school. But that idea of where we are working together as Huskies, as one team, that we are always pulling in the same direction. And when we fall short, and trust me, in upper school, you will fall short at some point, how do we pick each other up? And how do we do the right thing? And how do we take those mistakes, those missteps, those best intentions that didn't quite land, with the expectation that, hey, let's use this as a learning opportunity, a growth. And so that compassion component is key. This is not a cutthroat place. This is not a place in which our kids are constantly looking over one another's shoulders at their grades, at their college lists, or anything like that. But how do we take care of each other as one Husky team to bring the best out of ourselves and one another is super important. So I love that we work with that here amongst our students. Let's go to the next one. Act with integrity. 14 to 18-year-olds in upper school, you get a lot of freedom. And with that freedom becomes a great level of responsibility. And so we expect our students to act with integrity. We model that amongst our faculty and staff. We model that with the responsibility and the expectations of our students. But that comes through literally where we have our students involved in our upper school honors council, where they are working with students who have any type of academic integrity issues or disciplinary issues. We're expecting our students to be able to model that respectful behavior, as well as support the growth of their community around them. So our kids in the upper school are our culture bearers, and this integrity, this trust, this community is incredibly important to them. And we try to give them as much opportunity to continue to grow and lead in that way as best as possible. And I think that best prepares them for life where they go home after school or later on off to college, where perhaps they have that freedom to make some choices, and we want them to make the healthiest ones possible. So they get to practice that here in a really safe space to do so. Let's head on to the next one. Imagine what's possible. This is one of the things that I really love about the upper school, being that we are a consistently innovative and evolving school community. That idea of wonderment, that idea that this is always a continuous journey wherever we go. And therefore, we have the opportunities to take a look and say, hey, what could this look like? Where could this go? And that could be from a wide array of classes and course choices and student choice that our upper school students experience, where they can dive headfirst into a bunch of arts classes or theater classes or really unique technology classes, our cybersecurity club, you name it. But these are all things that are oftentimes student driven and then faculty supported, where if a child raises their hand and says, hey, what do you think about this? We don't have to sit back and say, I'm sorry, we got to get back to this content. We're not going to explore that. Let's take some time to tease that out. And that's through the real dedication and support of incredible faculty thinking about this curious nature and imagining what's possible amongst our students, because that's the type of thinking that we need to be able to solve complex real life problems out there in the world. And so we're fostering that here at a really healthy level. Last one, my favorite, blaze the trail. This is something that is incredibly important to me and to all of our Huskies. That idea that yes, we are a part of a team. Yes, we are a part of one community in partnership with our families, faculty, staff, and students. But in the end, this is your journey. We foster that individuality and that connection to a whole, but realizing that when a student says, hey, what if I tried this? Where can we say yes and? Where can we support that student to be able to carve out their own niche, their own experience, to be able to build that confidence, to be able to provide those supports in a way that makes it really meaningful. I'm thinking about one of our students who's a senior this year, who's been able to get involved in some really great things outside of Flint Hill that have eventually led to her to be having an internship with the State Department through her cybersecurity work. That initial idea started back a few years ago with a student who's trying to figure out what fine arts class she wanted to take, and she didn't want to do art, she didn't want to do music, she didn't want to do drama, and thankfully, cybersecurity fit in amongst our digital arts, and so she took that shot. And then she worked with that class. She worked with that group. She founded a cybersecurity club. She got a speaker series where we were bringing in individuals from outside of Flint Hill to talk to our students that are interested in this area. And eventually, she put herself in a position in which she was being recognized by the State Department for her promising skill set. They said, hey, come on out. Let's take a job. And then the partnership with which that student worked with our upper school faculty and staff to be able to make sure that that fits within her overall experience here at Flint Hill and still be on pace to graduate, that partnership was really key. So without that student's willingness to both imagine what's possible and then later say, all right, this is the path I want to try, she'd be just sitting in another art class that she had to take at a different school. And so I think that that's something that's really neat here at Flint Hill, where we always want to be pushing that innovation and that support for our students in ways that are meaningful to them. So that way we see them as individuals on these journeys that are incredibly special over time. And I think that while all those things wrap together, pay off really nicely when it comes to life after Flint Hill, graduation, college admission, and beyond, that's not the goal. Those things are the byproduct of a really incredible upper school experience. And so when we stay focused on those things, all that other good stuff tends to happen really naturally as well. So this is a special place. I love it. I hope that you love it here too. And I know that you're going to be in good hands tonight with a really incredible panel of experts. And so I invite you to explore this community and join us as you feel ready. And I turn it over to Jennifer and the rest of the admissions team. Jen, you're muted, I think.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Patrick, and thank you for that great presentation. I have the pleasure now of turning it over to Don Page, who is the Upper School Division Director, and he is going to tell us a bit more in-depth information about the Upper School.
Hi, everyone. I'm Don Page. I'm in my 25th year of high school education. I'm in my 7th year of being a division director at high schools and independent schools. And one of my favorite things I've seen just in these virtual meetings is I'm seeing the student with the parent. And even in some of the visuals I see tonight, I see that. And that just warms my heart. I'm going to talk real briefly tonight because I have some great students and parents that can speak more effectively than I probably could about what we do. But I do want to give you like a rough outline of what we do at the upper school. And as Patrick said, the overarching umbrella of our culture does come from our core values. And a deeper way of looking at that, we want our school to really be a safe place to learn. And we talk about this word safe a lot. you're going to compete, you're going to take risks, but we want it to be safe. I tell students a lot of times, you're going to spend more time in the building with us than you'll spend at home if you don't count sleeping time. And so this has to feel like your home, that you want to be there. And also in today's modern college preparatory environment, the best way we know to maximize outcomes for the students isn't just to provide that rigorous curriculum, which we have, but to infuse that curriculum with a culture that says, this is your home, feel safe to take risks here, and we're going to respect the path you want to blaze, and we're going to be there to help you set that path of playing what it is, for whatever that may be for you. It isn't just to say that this is culture, we've got to establish it and nourish it. And so even when we open the year, we very methodically and intentionally start the year with an extended orientation that has multiple segments in either advisory, class meetings, or school-wide meetings. If you walked on campus during those first 2 days earlier in August, you would have seen a variety of activities that might have both confused and excited you, from students playing Pictionary together, to groups of students competing on the fields, to the athletic council walking them through cheers, and then even like the mundane parts where the advisor sits down with students to make sure they understand their textbooks, but also they understand where they're going, all of those components. And we put them together really intentionally because we want to match up students. We want to connect them. When we put seniors with freshmen during the week and they play Pictionary together or something of that ilk, we're beginning the process of trying to turn those seniors into mentors on the campus. We want to do that for the seniors and for the ninth graders. And the seminal moment of that week is when we have all 700 members of the upper school community sign our core values board, as Patrick was referencing, and put in the main hallway of the upper school building. And I don't use that for decoration. It just doesn't sit there. There's a lot of times I walk by it with a student. I ask, what does this mean to you, that you're part of this community, that you chose this, right? And then I often share what it means to me to be part of that community and to have those values. We also try and build that culture through our daily schedule. We have regular classes, as most places do, but we also purposely work in a couple things that we think are important to building this culture. One of the things that we work in are 2 hours of community time each week to buttress the class schedule with a variety of programming that could be put on by counselors or college counselors or groups. And to try and make this authentic as possible, I realized we had community time today, so I brought up our schedule. And so this is what would have happened during community time today. Peer counselors, which are trained students that work with our counseling department, worked with all the ninth grade advisories, and they had a cheer competition on the front lawn. In 10th grade, there were one-on-one check-ins. That's kind of individually check in with students who are 4 weeks into their 10th grade to see how they're doing. Half the junior class was working with our college counseling department to get some college counseling program. And the 12th graders were having a special student council election to fill a space in student council. And that gives you kind of a wide idea of what happens in these times, from clubs and organizations to our college counseling department working closely with the students to advisors one-on-one to ninth graders still kind of finding their voice. We also purposely work in a lot of free time and break time for the students throughout the day, beyond just the 1 hour of teachers' office hours that we have each day. We want students to have some unscheduled time so they can work in the art studio a little more, go join with a club and work with them on a community service project, or simply catch up with friends. A lot of the research in independent schools and adolescent education in the last 3 decades has shown that this unscheduled time can make the actual class time more effective and more efficient when you build that in throughout the day. And so we really think the result of all of this intentional and strategic work is the supportive community you'll notice when you step on campus. And it goes beyond just creating a safe space to learn. It does allow students to think about taking those risks that Mr. McHonett spoke about. It's really hard to blaze your own trail and imagine what if in a community that doesn't support these risks and innovations. And I have a variety of examples, but I was kind of touched by one that happened last week that I wanted to talk about tonight, which is there was no better example than we had our all-school gathering last week. And so the all-school gathering is when we bring together students from our youngest Huskies in junior kindergarten all the way to our graduating seniors. So basically the entire student body comes together. Now, at the event this year, we had 3 students speak, one for the lower school, the middle school, and the upper school. And there was a 6th grader who's going to speak for the lower school, and he was actually going to go first. And as he approaches the podium, it was so clear his nerves were starting to overwhelm him. And he was wavering a little, which makes sense. He was about to speak in front of 1,300 people as a sixth grader. And in that moment, you could feel the energy in the room completely change as the student body, from his fellow lower schoolers to the upper schoolers and middle schoolers, started egging him on, supporting him, like, you got this, you can do this, and started cheering him to take that risk. And though it wasn't easy, he got up, he put his hands on the podium, and he gave this amazing speech. And when he finished, the room just roared and erupted for him in a way that you don't always see in every community. And that moment, he felt like he could take that risk. And it was a huge moment for him. And it's kind of this organic, natural representation of the culture we put together. We keep this nurturing and support in this culture all the way through their time at Flint Hill. And it's capped off by a senior project where we ask students to pick a really important topic that matters to them and explore that topic in depth for over about 50 hours. And so before we graduate them off into the world, we send them off in this little mini exploration to pursue something they care about and to go through the process of creating something of their own that they're interested in and learning things about themselves. And so we start encouraging the seniors to pick that project early on, and the things they produce are simply amazing, but a great representation of the risks that they're taking as they learn about themselves and step out in the world. But before we can get children to that point, we have to discuss the deep, broad, rich, and rigorous curriculum that we use. So to go through the major points of that curriculum, I'm now going to hand it over to the Assistant Director of the Upper School and the Upper School Academic Dean, Debbie Ayers.
Thank you, Don, and good evening, everyone. It's good to see so many students in the field. I see some of your faces on the screen tonight, and I'm really excited you're here because I know that this part of the presentation, these next couple of minutes, will hopefully answer some of the questions you might have about what is it like in the classroom. So you've heard from our head of school and our director of the upper school. And I'm inspired. I'm always inspired all over again when I hear all collectively what we're about, when I hear someone go through our core values again, when I hear and am reminded of our mission statement. But I also know that as you sit there, one of your primary interests in being here tonight is knowing, can this school be a good fit for our family and for our students? And in that fit, you're thinking about the classroom. Will they meet their requirements? Will they get to explore some courses they've expressed an interest in? And I want to take just a couple of minutes to talk to you about how that connection could work for you. So true to our mission statement, our educational program focuses on the learner. That almost sounds too simplistic, but it is a big task to think about being in a classroom and knowing that a teacher and your classmates can also be focused on you, the individual. And so how do we do that? Getting to know you is key. Getting to know the clubs you're in, what you're about, what your interests are, what are your strengths, what are you still developing as a skill. We learn those things by having opportunities to talk with you one-on-one, to guide your course selection, rather than just handing you a piece of paper that says, okay, you're coming to 9th grade or 10th grade. Here are the classes you need to take. Granted, there will be some classes that everybody experiences, but there are many, many more that you might take that are different from your best friend. You may learn a whole new set of curriculum that you didn't even know existed because you're trying a new elective. And that can really jumpstart your enthusiasm or your motivation to explore a different field of learning. So guiding course selection is very important to us. The advisory that you've already heard mention of, that's important because that makes a large campus feel even smaller. You have a connective group where you can sit with 10 to 12 of your classmates and an advisor and get down deep into the things that interest you most. When do I need to start talking to my teachers about the next step in my course progression? Could I ask you to come see me play in the lacrosse game? There's that adult that might want to follow your progress in that way too. That's a step in getting to know you as a student. Having small class sizes. Our class sizes might be as small as 7 or 8, but they max out around 18. I will say there's an exception with some of our performing arts groups. We like to have big singing choirs, but mostly your academic groups where you're sitting and working with digital media, or you are using time to do project-based learning, those class sizes aren't going to be more than 18. So that's a very unique small size for you to grow and gain a lot of support and individualized instruction. But then even beyond that, we get to know you by the work you do in class. Of course, we want the content to be rich and rigorous. We want you to have options to take different courses. We want you to have the opportunity to take courses that maybe stretch you. Perhaps that's an honors class, perhaps that's an AP class, but perhaps that's a music class or a robotics class, or it could be an elective in forensics. We have so many different things that might inspire you. In those classes, we want to focus on skills as much as we focus on the content. At the end of your time, we want you to have either experienced or developed a skill to become a writer, to be a presenter, to be an analyst, maybe a researcher, definitely a facilitator, a debater, and yes, a leader. So all of these pieces that are part of our program, whether it's on the fields, the courts, the labs, the studios, the classrooms, they are all focused on your education and your journey. And I just can't tell you how excited I am for you that you're on the cusp of that. So there's still more to learn tonight. You're going to hear from some students, some parents. Our 9th grade dean is here this evening, so I'm really excited that there's more information to come. Thanks for letting me take a few minutes to talk about just some of the exciting things and the rigorous academic education that we can offer here. Thanks so much. I'll turn it back over to Dawn Page.
All right, well, this is the part where I think we get into the wonderful understanding of what you want to know and what we can share with you, which is where we ask for questions from the group. You can put those questions in the chat, and some of our panel might respond in the chat, but you're also welcome to ask them out loud, and I'll moderate that. But before we go, before we get going with that chat, let's see who's with us in our community to help us today. And so we'll go around and I'll let them introduce themselves, and if they could. And parents, when you introduce yourself, tell their group what graduation class that you have of students. And students, tell them something about yourself beyond just what you're taking, something that you do at Flint Hill. And so we have, for faculty, we have Andrew Kane. Andrew, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks so much, Don. Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Kane, and as Debbie Ayers mentioned, I have the privilege of serving as the freshman class dean, which means one of my jobs is to help transition our incoming 9th graders to the upper school through our advisory program and everything else. I've been at Flint Hill for 12 years, had to wear a lot of fun hats. My main job is I'm also part of the college counseling department, so I joke that I get to help our 9th graders come in, and then I help the 12th graders shove off in their senior year. So it's a real privilege to be a part of that full 4-year chain. So I'm so happy to be with you all this evening, and welcome any questions after we get through the panel introductions.
Thank you, Andrew. And we have alum Claudia Wood is with us. Claudia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Claudia. It's great to see so many familiar faces. Mr. Kane was my college advisor back in the day, but I was class of 2019 at Flint Hill, and I'm currently a senior at Cornell University studying hotel administration in the hotel school. And I guess as far as activities I did in Flint Hill, you heard my voice on the Major Minors track because I did that recording. And I was in service clubs, and I was a big participant in all the dance programs as well.
All right, thanks you for joining us, Claudia. We have some students with us. Sarah Manson's with us. Sarah, hey.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I am class of 2024, so I'm a junior. I play volleyball and I run track. And this year I just started my own club, Huskies for the Homeless, to kind of like help out, like directly help the homeless people. So that's like one other thing I'm really involved in.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. And Matthew Trimble's with us.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I just got out of a Flint Hill football game, so I am part of the football team. And I'm also a member of the robotics club, and I'm a senior.
You guys had a game tonight, Matthew, or practice?
So for the one time, since I've never played football before, Coach P pulled some strings and let a couple seniors play. JV, just to get a feel for the game and understand some of the plays and that type of stuff.
Well, it looks like you're still at school. Find a comfy place, bud.
Yes, sir.
And Sabrina Michaels with us. Sabrina?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sabrina. I am a sophomore, class of 2025. I am currently part of the robotics activity and part of the marching band.
All right. Thank you, Sabrina. And then we also have two parents with us. Tamara Jones, are you with us, Tamara? Let's see here. Maybe Tamara's having trouble with the microphone. Linda Manson, are you with us, Linda? All right, well, we'll work with our parents to see if we can get them back in, but luckily we have our students and our alums with us. So this is the part of the evening where we really want those that decided to join us today to put things in the chat that they want to know about. We know that there's a volume of information on the web, but there's always the question you might want to know and might want to dig into. So please feel free to start putting in the chat. It looks like Tamara's back with us. Tamara, are you on with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
I was having some technical difficulties. So good evening, everyone. My name is Tamara Jones. I am a parent of 3 boys that are student athletes. My oldest graduated in 2015. My middle son was 2019. And I have a 10th grader currently in the upper school. And I think that's it you needed from me, correct?
Yeah. Just a little introduction.
So I can say that my oldest 2 sons entered Flint Hill in the 7th grade. Everett, my youngest, entered during the 6th grade.
Nice.
So
Wow.
if you have any questions, I'm here.
All right. Well, I thought maybe we could start with the 3 students, and I'm going to kind of throw them a question they didn't know I was going to throw. But basically, tell me something that you found really challenging at Flint Hill, some place where you were challenged, pushed on a growth edge for you, and in any order you want, whoever comes to it first, but some place you have felt challenged.
Okay, I would say definitely like volleyball wise. We have a really competitive volleyball team, and it's a lot of fun practicing with them because they're all super talented, but it's also super challenging because it's a really high expectation. So I'd say that.
Perfect. Matthew, Sabrina, anytime you've been really challenged?
I think what was really challenging for me was moving up to a more difficult math class, having to try to learn conceptually, because the teachers do a very good job of trying to teach you the concepts. So especially for like AP classes, you can go and take the tests, which are mostly conceptual. You have to know from everything from the top to the bottom, all the information, and then apply it in ways that you may not have specifically learned. So that was a challenge for me to learn how to do that, as opposed to just thinking algebraically.
Great. Sabrina, anything come to mind?
Most likely joining the robotics team in 9th grade. I had no prior experience, so joining was a challenge for me socially. However, everybody was very accepting, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, that's awesome. Well, your discussions of challenge has popped the chat alive, and so I'm going to start using some of these questions, and I'll direct them to people. Debbie, the first question talks about what sets us apart academically from other schools, opportunities for acceleration, and are there opportunities for project and group-based STEM activities? Do you want to tackle that one, Debbie?
Sure, that one is packed with a lot, so you cut me off if I've gone on too long. We do have 8 departments. I did not mention this when I spoke earlier, but we have 8 academic departments. Nothing that would be a real surprise here, but I want to take it one step further. We have English, history, social sciences, math, science, modern language, the classics, fine arts, and innovation. And within that realm, there's the opportunity to take the minimum requirements for the Flint Hill diploma, but there's also the opportunity to extend all 4 years in a department. Some students can double up and find their way into a 5th course in a department. Some students will double up in a language. Other students might double up in a science. You don't even have to do that. You can spend your time trying to get a little bite out of all 8 pieces. We have courses and progressions that will carry students through multiple levels, AP, post-AP if they choose, and then some. So we have multiple languages that they can study. We have most of the well-known AP courses are part of our curriculum, but on the side of that, I just want to stress how rich and vibrant our elective offerings are. Courses such as the Internet, Salvation or Destruction. What a cool title, right? We also have opportunities for students to take an English elective in writing intensive fiction or short fiction, poetry writing classes, things where it's sort of off of the core curriculum, but certainly has a good opportunity to develop skills even further and in unique ways. So that might be a partial answer. I'll stop there and give some of the other folks a chance to chime in on that, especially students if you've taken something of interest and want to share more about that.
Well, and I'll add to the part about the question about project and group-based STEM activities. You know, Sabrina mentioned being robotics. Mr. McHonett mentioned a student with cybersecurity. There's a research track through our science department. We even had one of our seniors last year was the opening article in the secondary school original research journal. And she did that independently with her AP psychology teacher and did a study. And so there's a ton of opportunities for independent STEM activity, group STEM activity learning. Even today, I signed off on a form for us to send teams to the Science Olympiad. So it kind of comes as much as you might think. So the next question asks, how many new students do you usually get in the 9th grade? I think this year we're about 55% students came up from 8th grade and 45% new. So that's roughly 75 and 55. So I think a fair number is about 50 to 65 new 9th graders is a fair number of who comes in. So it's a rather substantial new amount that comes in the 9th grade. So it feels like a new grade. And then the second question was, what sort of support does Flint Hill provide for college admissions? So I thought maybe Andrew, you could take that question.
Sure, absolutely. You know, as a college preparatory school, we know that pretty much every student that walks in the front door is looking to go to college as the next step. So we have a comprehensive program that begins in 9th grade. During 9th grade orientation, one of the people that 9th grade students hear from is the college counseling department, just reminding them that you're in the upper school now. This all counts. This is all going to work towards those things. But also, the most important thing you can do as a 9th and 10th grader in the school is get comfortable in the classroom, build those essential academic skills and time management skills that will serve you well as you go on, as well as get involved. Find out what your interests are, but keep an open mind to those new things that might pique your interest. You didn't. You heard Sabrina say she got involved in robotics without much prior to that. You know, we want students to explore those new interests. And then, of course, once junior year hits is when that's where the rubber really hits the road, where you're really digging into the actual search and research process. Mr. Page mentioned we had our first of our monthly junior seminars that we do that leads into our family conferences with students and everything else. And then, of course, senior year is the actual application process. We're really digging into the actual completion and submission of the applications. Every student will be working with one of the 4 college counselors. We review every inch of those applications, give feedback, help make sure students are ready to go, and guide them through that process until they're out the door on graduation day, and they've completed their time at Flint Hill. So a very robust program.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. The next question was about easing the transition for students that are new to Flint Hill. And either maybe the students or the parents, if any of you can talk about what your experience was when you were new to Flint Hill and what maybe happened to help ease that transition.
On this. I can speak on this. So my transition from middle school to high school obviously is like a new environment, so you're gonna have to adapt to that. Because I came from a small middle school, I only had 28 people in my graduating class, and to go from 28 people to over 100 in the class was a little intimidating at first. But for me, the community was very inclusive, and I got friends very quickly, and a lot of them. So it felt like I was just in a small school again, and then it was just more work, because you're gonna get more work in high school, but it was manageable because my teachers were good. I stayed on top of my work. I had a good community around me, and it ended up being no challenge at all freshman year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I kind of had like an opposite like arrangement for Flint Hill because I came from Kilmer, which is like my local public school. So I had 600 kids in my graduating class. And then coming to Flint Hill, I only had like 100. So I was nervous it was going to feel like a super small environment. And like I would know everyone a little too well. But I really ended up liking it. I loved it was weird freshman year because it was COVID, but I still managed to make friends. The advisory program I think was like one of the best because like you really like you come into school and like you don't really know anybody. So it just gives you 12 or 11 other kids like that, and so you can kind of branch off from there. So I would say overall it was a great and smooth transition, but it was definitely from huge to small for me, and so it was kind of interesting.
One other fascinating part of our orientation, we have juniors and sophomores with us as students today, but one other fascinating part of orientation is we bring the seniors to the ninth graders during that, and we have them say, what do you wish you knew when you were a ninth grader? And we really leave it organically to guide them. And you'd be surprised how much the seniors really want to bring them under their wing and tell them, hey, do this, these are the things you got to do. It's a great kind of part. And then even I think for the students to see the seniors and be vulnerable in the moment, what it was like for them when they did the transition, helps them think, okay, I can do this. I've got this connection. Other people have gone through this. But we use a lot of that to ease the transition. So let's see. I see a question here about an option for history, government, public policy for students with a particular interest as well as a background in studying these subjects coming to Flint Hill, or does this field have its own trajectory? And I'll kind of tackle this one in the sense that this is a great example of when you bring a community of learners together from a wide swath, there are a variety of different interests. And to really meet all of these, we use an independent study program to meet people when they have these specific interests that they really want to pursue. And so we have a really diverse faculty with diverse skills and interests that can meet a lot of these questions. And we have a really amazing parent body that we draw on that always wants to come in and work with the students. And so, Debbie, maybe could you talk about an independent study and a few independent studies where, to Andrew's question, if someone had an example, a topic like this they wanted to study, how we could make that work?
Absolutely. So our independent study program falls under the innovation department because it is such an innovative way for students to learn. They complete a proposal form. The proposal form basically informs us what their topic is, why they are interested, what type of background do they bring to the project. And we have a menu of options for final deliverables that they might produce at the end or throughout the independent study. And then there is an other where they can develop their own idea of how they want to represent their learning. And the independent study begins at the start of a semester and continues through the 18 weeks, half of a year. They meet every 2 or 3 weeks with someone who is just tracking that they are following their proposal. It isn't necessarily an assigned expert in the field. They're free to go out into the community, or if they can isolate someone at school that they know has an area of passion that they share or expertise, they can certainly use one of our faculty members to collaborate with. But by and large, this is self-directed learning at its finest. They are designing their lesson plan. They are keeping a log of their hours. They invest at least 6 hours a week in their independent study, and their check-ins are logged. And then at the end, they're receiving a final grade where they are in the driver's seat for the self-assessment too. They are determining their own rubrics. And we're just there to sort of encourage them, motivate, keep them on track. And they title their course, and that is how it appears on their transcript. So it is a wonderful opportunity for students to take on a challenge, have a lot of agency over their learning, and to be able to showcase something outside of what our curriculum might offer.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you. Well, Claudia, someone asked to hear more about the dance program from you.
Yeah, so I was a part of the dance program for a majority of my semesters at Flint Hill. I guess there's kind of 2 groups within the dance program. There are the dance classes that you can take, and there's also dance team. So I wasn't on dance team, but I can talk about the class component. I was a dancer my whole life, so I was really excited for the opportunity to be able to take classes during the school day. It felt very fun, kind of weird when it first started freshman year, but Mrs. Mercallo is a really amazing dance teacher. I loved working with her. The classes, if they're still the same, there was a ballet class that you could take where you got to participate in the Nutcracker. And I loved it because my studio didn't do the Nutcracker. So that was a really fun opportunity that I got because I was at Flint Hill. It also, as I got older and started taking the higher level dance classes, I got to experience choreography for the first time and got to choreograph pieces for the Nutcracker, got to choreograph for Arts Jam, which is the spring show with all of the fine arts groups, and got to choreograph ballet and jazz, contemporary pieces as well. So it was a really great program. It really helped. It was almost kind of like a fun way to use my brain differently during the school day, and kind of get some of that energy out. It was always fun being able to go to dance class right after a test and kind of get all the energy out of my system.
Yeah. Did you like a dance class before a test or after a test? Which was always better for you?
I guess it depends. I think ballet was really nice before a test because it really helped me like center myself, but getting to go to a jazz class and kind of just leap around the room after a test was always nice as well. That's
awesome. And Sabrina, along the same line, someone wants to hear about marching band. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Sure. So the marching band, I'm actually part of the percussion ensemble. The marching band is made up of the percussion ensemble along with both of the bands, both jazz and symphonic. We perform at any major event, such as the pep rally in a few weeks for the homecoming football game. And I believe we will also be playing at the homecoming soccer game. We prepare pieces. In some cases, we do march. In other cases, we stand on the bleachers and play songs to help pump up the crowd.
That's awesome. And Andrew, I saw you asked if there are economics courses available. We offer AP Microeconomics and AP Macroeconomics, but you also happen to pick, that's the course I teach. I teach an Introduction to Economics course in both semesters to a group of 10th, 11th, or 12th graders, which is, it's the joy of my day every day. I often say I was a teacher that got tricked into an office. So, but yeah, we absolutely do. There's also an investment club that really took off last year that's been competing, which has been really great as well. So I'm starting to recognize that my agenda said at 7:20, I should be handing this back to Jennifer Webb so that the students can get on with their day and do homework. The rest of you can accomplish what you need to do. But please know, the first thing I tell students and I tell everybody is please ask questions. And as you go through this process, if you need other information, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us that you saw here tonight and the admission staff. we really want to help you know everything you need to know as you make these really important decisions. Okay.
Thank you so much, Don. Thank you for sharing more about the upper school, leading us through that great panel. Thank you to Debbie and our other team members and our students and parents and alum. Really appreciate you being here tonight. So at this point, we'll dive a bit more into the admissions and the admission process. And at Flint Hill, a little bit about the process itself before we get into details. We really love getting to know families, the admission team. Justin, Julie are here. Another upper school officer is Lauren. We'll show her picture a little bit later if you haven't met her yet. We love working with families. We love getting to know families. We love being on the journey with families as they discover and search for their best fit school. And so we're here to partner with you in that process. We want you to find the best fit school. Of course, we want it to be Flint Hill, but if it's not Flint Hill, we just want you to be at the place that works for you. And so we are as transparent about and authentic about all that we are, and that we ask that families bring their authentic selves to the process. And doing that, hopefully that removes some of the nerves that can come both for the students and parents, and getting all the documents in by the deadline and completing the interviews, and just knowing that this is really about you getting into your best fit school, and students and families always get into their best fit schools. So so hopefully that removes some concern or anxiety people might have about the process. It really starts with the application. And so the application can be found online on the screen. There is a link there, flinthill.org/new app. The application itself takes about 15 minutes or so to complete. It's a form that you submit online. And after you submit that form, you'll have an active checklist in Husky Hub. And that checklist will show all of the documents and information that is still required. And it will also show everything that we have already received. So the documents that we require in addition to that application form are transcripts, both from last year and any transcripts that are available for this year. Recommendations, one by a math teacher and one by a English teacher for the current year. So that would be this year's math and English teachers. And those, when you go into the checklist, you will be able to put in their names and email addresses. So our system automatically pings the request. You can type in a customized message if you want, or we have a default message that just goes to their inbox so they can click right on that recommendation form. Questionnaires, there is a questionnaire required from the parent and then a separate one that we ask the student to submit. We also require a writing sample be submitted to us. And the SSAT test is optional. And so it is up to you. If your student is taking it for other reasons and you'd like to submit it to Flint Hill, absolutely, we'll accept it, go ahead. But we don't require families to go out and take the test. We leave it up to families to decide if they think that would be a useful additional data point for their student. And if you need any help in deciding that, that is, another way that the admission team is here and ready to help you kind of navigate, like, what are the factors in deciding if you should submit or take the SSAT. A student and parent interview are also required as part of the process. Those are typically can be conducted within the same appointment time, but are done separately. So we'll have different sessions with the parents and with the student. So that is what you submit. In terms of when to submit, our application opened on September 1. So you can go ahead and complete that application form if you haven't already. I know that I see a lot of you in the audience today have already submitted the application form. So you're on a great path. If you haven't, it's there and available. October is a great time to schedule the interviews. After you submit the form, you're given access to an interview scheduler. And so you can schedule an interview for further out to make sure that gets on the calendar, since calendars do fill up, especially as the main deadline approaches. November is a great time to request the recommendations from the teachers, to put in their names and email addresses for our system to ping that out to them, just because it gives them a little bit more time than the last few weeks they've had to get to know your student. The financial aid application opens on November 1st. For those interested in applying for aid. And we recommend that you actually try to have all of the pieces that we've discussed in by the end of December. You'll see a little bit ahead that the application deadline is January 20th, both to have the full admission application complete, and the financial aid deadline is also January 20th, which is a separate application found on our tuition and financial aid website. But we actually recommend striving to have this all in December, just because once the deadline passes, anybody that's had a file complete before the deadline is given the priority. And many years our capacity is quite tight. And so we hate to see you miss out because you run into an obstacle trying to get something in on January 19th and it doesn't get here in time. If you try to get all the pieces in December, then we have some time to problem solve. If the teacher is not able to submit the recommendation because they have to go on leave or for some other reason, we have some time to navigate anything that might come up. Most of the time it goes super smooth, but just recommend families build in that cushion time. The admission decisions are sent out on March 3rd, and then the week of March 6th we have revisit events. And then in April, we start celebrating that we found each other, that we're going to partner for your students' education. That's also the month where we have placement surveys to help guide placement in terms of courses for your student. And then in May, there's a new family information night. And then during the summer, it's about socializing, getting to know each other, and prepping for the school year. So in terms of connecting and next steps, as I've mentioned, we have Julie and Justin here with us tonight. Their pictures are on the screen. Lauren South is also a upper school admission officer. And so you're at an event. That's a great start. We have several other events coming up. We have a couple on campus. We recommend, if you haven't already been on campus, come to an event on campus. Schedule a tour. If you want to have a more in-depth conversation with your admission officer, then schedule a phone consultation, a virtual meeting. You can schedule those appointments with the officers on the admission team page that is linked there. And the events are on our campus visit page, which it looks like you found because you're here tonight. So you can just go back to that page. And we have several other upper school events on campus. We also have some events that are really topical. Some are focused on core values or a vision, such as curiosity. We have a curiosity event later in the year. We have some arts and innovation events. And so encourage you to check out all those. We are very active on social media, and we also have an admission blog. It's called an admission blog, but it's not just about the admission process. It's about so much more. It's about what we do here at Flint Hill. There's some teachers spotlighted. It's our approach to teaching and learning, some videos and some written content there. So that's another great place to dive into as you're trying to learn more about Flint Hill to determine if it might be a fit for your family. And so that is the admission process in summary. I am glad to answer any questions that you might have. So feel free to chat in any questions that you might have. I see that there's a question about whether we have rolling admissions or we wait for a particular date to make decisions. And so we do, we are a member of AISGW, the Association of Independent Schools of Greater Washington. And all schools that are a member of that follow the guidelines to not release decisions before March 3rd. And so any family that has the application complete by January 20th gets a decision on March 3rd. And then after that, we might make decisions on a rolling basis after that decision release in grades or areas if there are any seats still available. Great question. Glad to answer any other questions you might have about the admission process or getting to know us at Flint Hill. Feel free to drop it into the chat there. All right. Well, I consider this a great sign. It sounds like we have answered your questions, which is exactly what we set out to do this evening. So thank you so much for spending some time with us this evening and getting to know us. We're really grateful that you are interested in Flint Hill, and we are really excited to continue the dialogue and continue the conversations and to get to know you and your family better. And so we look forward to connecting another time really soon. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.